The Who We Are page on the Cook Inlet Tribal Council's website starts with the line, "Our people have always understood that no one lives in isolation." Hello, and thanks for joining me for another Puzzle Platformers episode, this time looking at Kisima Ingitchuna, Never Alone. The first time I played this game, I really didn't get along with it. It felt like the puzzles weren't complicated, just padded out by making the controls unnecessarily tricky. I still wanted to go back to it for this series though, because Never Alone has a somewhat unique design purpose. It wasn't just made to be a video game, but was funded by the Cook Inlet Tribal Council to be part of a series celebrating indigenous Alaskan culture. The story is drawn together from the tales of their folklore and narrated in the Inupiat language, as traditionally these stories would have been passed down orally by the tribe's elders. In Never Alone, a young girl named Nuna witnesses the devastation of her village by both the Manslayer and the Eternal Blizzard, and must do what she can to help save her people, accompanied by an Arctic fox, her guide among the spirits of the land. Nuna makes an excellent choice of protagonist. Playing a character of her age puts the player in the same position as the Alaskan children who these tales would be told to. Thomas Was Alone also told its story through voiceover narration, but in that game I sometimes wondered if it was the right fit. Never Alone solves the problems I had, in part by echoing the oral traditions of the tribe, and in part by having the script written in the present tense, which doesn't negate the sense of interaction that Thomas Was Alone sometimes did. Never Alone is a tale of survival and companionship. Nuna is out to save her entire tribe, and those family bonds are important in the story, but more immediate is her relationship with the fox. I mentioned I didn't get along with the game first time I played it, and a lot of that has to do with me playing it in single player mode. With not dealing with problems alone being such a fundamental part of the game that it's in the title, I thought it only fair to try the game in co-op before passing any comment. So the video you're watching now is of Geordie, Chelsea and myself passing the controllers between us, each playing some parts as the girl and some parts as the fox, and suddenly the game was fun, challenging in a good way. The gameplay is asymmetric. Each character has their own movement style and unique mechanics. Nuna can throw the bowler and push crates around. The fox can jump higher and draw spirits of the world towards him, so puzzle solving became an act of teamwork, calling out what you could do or how you wanted the other player to help. The problem the developers, Upper One Games, faced was making each section work whether the game is running in solo or in co-op. So how have they tried to solve this? Firstly, let's look at safe spaces. There's always somewhere the solo player can leave whichever character they're not controlling. Somewhere away from the danger or out of the pathing of the threats. Here Nuna can stand safely while the ice floes rise up next to her. And in this section the elder spirits leave glowing trails to make their loops easier to read and avoid. The problem with these safe spaces is that they break up the flow of the gameplay, as they need to exist at fairly regular intervals. In co-op, neither character can be left with nothing to do for too long, else that player will feel bored, which means in solo mode the player will need to switch characters fairly often, hence the need for plenty of safe spaces with short challenges between. A lot of the dangers faced throughout the game are environmental. This is probably a comment on the climate Native Alaskan culture developed in, and the threats the tribes faced, but it's also a way of managing the solo co-op split. By limiting the number of sentient foes the pair face, Upper One Games also limit the number of scenarios where an antagonist actively attacks the player. The computer-controlled character's AI will follow the human player's lead in the chase sections of the game, and generally the enemy AI will make it clear which character they are focused on so the solo player knows who they should be controlling. But for the majority of the platforming, the solo player won't need to switch back and forth too quickly. In fact, let's look a little closer at the environment and how it affects the game. Alaskan blizzards are harsh and unforgiving. It's no surprise that Inuit folklore would have stories and cautionary tales about them, which is why they take such a centre stage in the game. The blizzards represent danger, and so Nuna must take shelter when the winds blow too strong. But just as the native Alaskans adapted to life in Arctic conditions, Nuna can use the winds to help her cross large distances. The water and ice as well are dangers Nuna can use to her advantage when necessary. The environment should always be respected for what it can do, we are taught, but that doesn't mean it needs to be feared. Spirits are invisible without Nuna's guide, the fox, around, but they are still as much a part of the environment as the ice and snow. The spirits represent another way in which Nuna is never really alone, lost out in the ice. For the most part they are helpful and look just like they do drawn on the native scrimshaw art. Mechanically, this gives them a distinct look. so the player can learn how to interact with them. But it also makes sense from a narrative perspective, as invisible forces, Nuna's only idea of them would have come from the art produced by her tribe. I've mentioned the story and the art, the mechanics and the design, but the game goes one step further in its goal of sharing Native Alaskan culture.
They're just like other people. They just happen to be very small and extremely strong.
These are stories that are common throughout Alaska. It's normally that people are the size from your elbow to the tips of your fingers, and they possess superhuman strength.
There are 24 short videos on aspects of Alaskan folklore and culture, such as the scrimshaw art and the manslayer. These teach the player why the spirits and obstacles they've encountered are important to the native people and deserve a place within this game. The documentaries are mostly interesting in their own right. What I really appreciate about the team's design here is the way in which they are unlocked. Where Thomas was alone and Limbo hid achievements and trophies in out-of-the-way places, Never Alone rewards the determined explorer with education. The first few of these owls, unlocking the videos, are placed along the player's path, so they have to encounter them and learn their purpose. But later they require the player to divert from the path in order to find them. I'll admit it, I'm much more likely to watch a video on cultural insights if I feel I have earned it, and so commend the developers for tricking me into learning. Never Alone is available on so many different platforms. I haven't tried the tablet versions, but I'd recommend sticking to console or PC because this game is one that really should be played in co-op. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the game in the comments below, or recommendations for platformers you'd like to see me explore. If you like this video, please click that little like button below, and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. Thanks for watching. Limbo is all about mood and atmosphere. The character is simply a blank page for the player to experience the world through, while Thomas, a literal blank page, is actually a character with his own thoughts and feelings. Thomas stands out on the screen, red against a background of dull slate blue.